Whispers of the withered land. The sun had long forgotten Ekoni. For 3 months, the skies had stayed dry, not even a cloud had dared drift across the horizon. Cracks split the ground like spider webs. The riverbed was nothing but a trail of dust, the old well only coughed up the sound of echoes. And on the edge of this dying village, in a crooked mud brick hut, Zelma sat beside her daughter's bed, crushing dried cassava leaves between her callous fingers, pretending it was still food. Tumi lay still. Her small chest rose and fell like the wings of a broken bird. Her lips were cracked, her skin dull and stretched too tightly over her fragile bones. Her eyes had stopped opening fully 2 days ago. Even in sleep, her little fingers clutched the wooden toy Zelma had carved from a fallen baobab branch last summer. Back when there was still laughter in the wind. Back when there was wind. Zelma hadn't slept in 2 nights. Her body was strong, but her spirit bent under the weight of hunger, sorrow, and the kind of loneliness that digs itself into the bones. Her husband, Karu, had died the previous harvest. A snake bite, swift and brutal. The healers couldn't save him. The village blamed her, of course, they always did. Whispers behind closed doors, side eyes at the market. A cursed woman, they called her. Marked by the serpent gods. As if losing the man she loved wasn't already enough. That morning, the silence was heavier than ever. No roosters crowed. No insects hummed. Even the trees stood still, like they were holding their breath. Zelma stepped outside, bare feet sinking slightly into the dust. She scanned the yard. Her chickens, gone. No feathers. No footprints. Her goat pen was empty. Even the scratch marks on the wood had vanished. Her little garden, 3 yam mounds and a half-dead mango sapling, had been torn up during the night. The earth was bare, the roots twisted and shivered like burned rope. It was like the world had erased itself around her. Zelma's knees gave out. She dropped to the ground, hands gripping dry soil that crumbled between her fingers. Her chest ached from the weight of nothingness. She cried, but no tears came, even her grief had dried out. Then she heard it. Not a sound, exactly. A pull, a whisper that wasn't a whisper. A voice carried through the marrow of her bones. Not in her ears, but in the back of her mind. It said one thing. Go to the hollow. Zelma looked up. The serpent's hollow. She had heard stories since childhood. Every child in Ekoni knew the tales. Deep in the Nulu forest, past the termite hills and the singing stones, there was a pit that reached into the belly of the earth. They said it was guarded by an ancient spirit, a serpent so large it had its own echo. Its name was Nalu, the eater of lies, the guardian of forgotten treasures. Some said it gave gold to those in need. Others said it ate the souls of those who dared ask. No one from Ekoni ever came back from the hollow. But Zelma had nothing left to lose. That night, under a sky that refused to show stars, she packed what little she had. A gourd of water. A faded cloth of her husband's. The carved toy, which she kissed and placed beside Tumi's sleeping body. Zelma leaned close to her daughter's ear. I will find a way, she whispered. I will bring back the sun. She wrapped her head in a faded scarf and stepped into the forest, where the air hung like wet smoke and the trees watched with breathless patience. Nulu Forest was not a place people walked at night. The paths twisted even when your feet walked straight. Shadows moved like animals, or animals moved like shadows. Zelma walked barefoot, branches nagging at her dress like hands trying to pull her back. She didn't stop. Not when thorns drew blood from her ankles. Not when she passed stones shaped like skulls. Not even when she saw the hanging bones from an old hunter's charm tree rattling softly, though there was no wind. She followed the pull. That strange hum beneath her ribs. The one that knew the way. Hours passed. Or maybe years. Time forgot itself in the forest. Then suddenly, the tree stopped. Zelma stepped into a clearing unlike anything she'd seen before. The ground was deep red, not dusty like a coney, but glowing like embers. In the center, a great hole yawned open. It paused faintly, like it breathed. And beside it stood a figure. She was not human. She looked like a woman, tall, elegant, her skin gleaming like riverstone under moonlight. But her eyes were the color of wildfires, bright and terrible. Around her shoulders curled a long snake, silver and gold, its eyes half closed as though dreaming. "Child of Econy," the woman said without moving her lips, "why have you come?" Zelma dropped to her knees. "My daughter is dying," she whispered. "And I have nothing left. No food. No animals. No family. I ask only for the chance to save her." The woman tilted her head. "Many have asked," she said. "Few have offered." "I have nothing to give," Zelma said. "Then why are you here?" The voice echoed from everywhere, from the ground, the trees, the sky. Zelma looked up. "Because I love her more than I fear you." The woman smiled. She reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a small ebony vessel, carved with patterns that seemed to move when Zelma blinked. "This is the vessel of Ndalu," she said. "Each night, place an offering of truth inside. Not lies. Not gold. Truth. In the morning, you shall receive what your heart truly needs. But if you ever forget, if you ever skip, the pit will take back what it gave. And more." Zelma reached out with trembling hands. The vessel was warm. Too warm. "Do you accept?" Zelma hesitated. Then nodded. "I do." The woman vanished. Just like that, not a shimmer, not a sound. Zelma stood alone, holding the vessel, standing at the edge of the pit that now paused a little faster, as though watching her. She turned, heart pounding, and began the long walk back home. At dawn, as the first weak light stretched across Econy, Zelma opened the vessel. Inside were 3 small yams, a fresh mango, and a pouch of copper coins. "Enough to feed to me for days." Zelma wept. She didn't question it. Not yet. She made porridge, fed her daughter, and sat down in the doorway of her hut, watching the sky as if it might remember how to rain. The people of Econy walked past her house that morning with widened eyes. There was smoke from her chimney. Smell of food on the breeze. A sick girl laughing softly. By midday, whispers began again. But this time, they sounded different. Not a curse woman. Now it was, lucky widow. Maybe the spirits favored her. Maybe she found something. Zelma said nothing. That night, she placed her first truth into the vessel, her wedding ring, the last memory of Koro. She kissed it, then dropped it into the ebony bowl. The vessel paused once, then went still. She whispered into the quiet, "Please, let her live." Zelma rose before first light, leaving Tumi wrapped in a patchwork blanket that smelled of wood smoke and hope. Yesterday's miracle, the surprise yams and copper coins that had appeared inside the strange ebony bowl, felt like a dream painted too bright to last. She had fed her daughter and watched color return to the girl's cheeks, yet unease coiled inside her like a restless snake. A single thought passed through every breath: what power did I invite into my life? The only way to learn the truth was to return to the forest. So, with bare feet and a heart full of thunder, Zelma stepped onto the powder-dry path that led away from Econy and into the waiting dark of Nulu Forest. The forest that listens. At sunrise, Nulu usually bustled with sound: hornbills gawking, monkeys squabbling, crickets sawing tiny violins in the grass. But as Zelma passed beneath the outer canopy, an unnatural hush spread in all directions. Leaves hung motionless. Vines looked like sleeping pythons. Even her own footfalls seemed swallowed by moss before the echo could form. Every few steps the silence bent, whispering voices slipping from trunks and roots. Cursed woman. Desperate heart. Does she think she can bargain with Earth's oldest form? Zelma clenched her fist. I work for my child, she muttered, though no ears but hers should have heard. The forest answered with a soft, mocking laugh that flickered through the undergrowth and was gone. She pressed on, following a memory rather than a trail, guided by the same magnetic pull that had led her here before. When a thorn drew blood from her ankle, the red drop soaked instantly into the soil as if hungry. When she brushed against a low branch, its leaves curled inward, tasting her scent. It felt less like walking across ground and more like treading the back of some gigantic animal deciding whether to let her pass. Twice she faltered. The tall Iroko trees knit their crowns overhead, dimming the morning to an eternal twilight. Spots of light flickered like distant lanterns, then died. She wondered if she had crossed out of the world she knew and into a borderless dream. Still, the pull deepened. Beneath the dirt a heartbeat, slow, reptilian, kept time with her own racing pulse. Boom, boom, boom. And woven through the bass drum came a high, thrumming voice. Closer. Listen to the roots. Two meeting Amafu. The third time Zelma stumbled, she landed in a clearing so sudden it felt carved by a knife. There, at the center, stood a figure bathed in soft green glow. The stranger's skin shimmered like moonlit riverstone. She had a face that seemed older than mountains yet smooth as fresh clay. Her silver eyes held neither pupil nor iris, only swirling light that shifted like smoke under glass. Draped across her shoulders rested a staff carved to resemble a coiled serpent, its wooden fangs gleamed as though still wet with dew. Zelma's breath caught. Are you? I am Amafu, the figure finished, voice calm as distant thunder. Guardian planted here when the first seed of Nulu touched soil. Zelma knelt, equal parts awe and terror. Great Spirit, I came yesterday. I know, Amafu said, tilting her head the way an owl studies a mouse. You stood here weeping gold tears you did not yet understand. Zelma's cheeks burned. The vessel saved my daughter. The vessel granted what your heart needed, Amafu corrected. But need is a river, it never stops at one sip. The guardian tapped the serpent staff against the ground. From that spot, a faint pulse of emerald rippled outward, rustling leaves that had been stiff as stone seconds before. The forest sighed, and birds dared a single, muted chirp. Walk beside me, Amafu said. Many routes lead to the same truth, but better we follow the one that speaks plainly. 3. The road to the hollow pit. They moved wordlessly along a path that revealed itself only at the exact moment a foot would fall. Branches bent away. Luminous fungi brightened like lanterns, guiding each step. Yet the deeper they traveled, the stranger the light became, shifting from dawn gold to bleeding sunset, though midday had not arrived. Zelma soon saw why. Ahead lay a scar in the earth, wide as a fishing boat and deeper than sight allowed. The ground surrounding it blazed crimson, as if the soil itself had drunk centuries of spilled wine. The hollow pit, Zelma whispered, recognizing the nightmares of her childhood. Legend said earth spirits buried their shames here, letting time pile dirt over secret sins. Yet here it was, open, pulsing, alive. From below floated a faint hiss, like a pot heating over coals. Amafu lifted her staff. The carved serpent's wooden eyes glowed gently, and the hiss dimmed to a murmur. Ndalu sleeps until dusk. We speak quickly. She turned to Zelma and extended her free hand. A small object materialized where there had been only air, a bow the color of night, polished so smoothly it reflected the forest like water. Symbols circled its rim, eyes, fangs, twisting vines, each line twitching as if drawn by restless charcoal. The ebony vessel, Amafu said. Made from heartwood of the first tree struck by lightning. It keeps one bargain and one bargain only. Zelma cradled the bow. It felt warm, vibrating like a distant drum. You gave this to me already, she said, half certain, half confused. Amafu's lips curved slightly. Time spirals in places where roots drink from ancient bones. We stand at the beginning and the middle of your story. Understand its rules now. Yesterday's miracle will hold only if tomorrow hears the truth. For terms written in blood and breath. Amafu spoke, voice echoing as though 20 guardians chanted in unison. At every sunset, feed the vessel a truth, something honestly yours, a memory, a secret, a possession whose meaning is real. Words alone will not do, the offering must cost you. At every sunrise, the vessel will return what your heart needs most: food, shelter, medicine, safety. Not always what you want, but what sustains the life you guard. Miss a single sunset, and the vessel tips toward the hollow. Ndalu will claim payment, starting with the gift dearest to your soul. Try to trick it with half-truth or borrowed stories, and the pit will open wider until everything you love is swallowed. Zelma's hands trembled, the vessel's strum matched her pulse. Why help me? Why any of this? Amafu touched the air beside Zelma's cheek. Once, a different mother stood here and battered her joy for an empty throne. Her grief poisoned the land for 3 generations. This forest hungers for a story that ends with balance, not ruin. Zelma swallowed. I will honor the rules. You will try, Amafu said. Remember, truth can be harder to find than gold in drought. Yet each sunset grants the chance to be honest. The guardian stepped back, serpent staff scraping a faint circle in the red earth. When doubt clouds your eyes, listen beneath the roots. They carry more wisdom than any tongue. A wind, sudden and cold, swept the clearing. Leaves spiraled upward, forming a makeshift cocoon around Amafu. When they fell, the guardian was gone, as though she had never been anything but green light reflected on bark. 5. The magic begins. Standing alone beside the lip of the hollow pit, Zelma felt its depth pulling at her breath, dragging thoughts toward endless dark. Somewhere below, Ndalu shifted, a rumble like rolling stones in an empty riverbed. She imagined colossal scales scraping ancient rock, fangs carved like moons, eyes glowing a merciless amber. I accept, she whispered, though no ear but the pits could hear. For to me. For tomorrow. At that vow the vessel flashed once, white, then black again. The pulse inside steadied to a confident, living beat. A faint line of glowing script circled its rim, readable for just a heartbeat. Truth for dawn, dawn for life. Zelma turned away quickly, heart racing. The forest parted before her steps, but now every branch seemed to bow in cautious respect. Hushed voices followed, no longer accusing, but curious. Will she keep the promise? Or feed the snake with her grief? The journey back felt shorter, though sunlight barely shifted. When Ekoni's outer farms appeared, Zelma topped the vessel inside her shore, mind already racing. What truth will I give tonight? Her wedding ring had been first, she would need more stories, sorrows, memories she feared to relive. She crossed her threshold to find Tumi awake, seated on the mat and nibbling the last sweet mango with bright, wondering eyes. Mama, she said, voice small but steady, did the sky send breakfast? Something like that, Zelma replied, kneeling to gather her daughter into trembling arms. Inside her shore, the ebony bowl hummed, promising sunrise miracles if sunset honesty matched dawn desire. Outside, an unexpected breeze shifted the dust. A single cloud drifted past the sun, thin, frail, but unmistakably pregnant with rain. Somewhere beneath the village floor, deep in hidden roots, Amafu's unseen voice whispered. The river flows again, but every bend hides sharp stones. Step wisely, mother of Ekoni. And so the second chapter of Zelma's bargain began, written not in ink but in gifts and confessions, each sunset another stone laid on a narrow bridge spanning mercy and rain. The season of miracles in Ekoni began with a single, quiet sunrise. On that morning the ebony vessel gave Zelma more than food. It gave bricks of sun-baked clay, bundles of thatch, iron nails, and a broad plank door painted the color of ripe purple. By midday neighbors stood open-mouthed while a new house rose where Zelma's crumbling hut had been. Its walls were straight, its roof did not leak, and its windows, cut wide to let in fresh air, gleamed with glass so clear a lizard paused to admire its own scales. The widowed mother who once begged for scraps now owned the grandest home in Ekoni. People talked, of course. At first their whispers fluttered like timid birds, perhaps the ancestors took pity. Maybe her husband left hidden wealth. But the vessel kept walking, and soon the whispers turned to praise. Women brought baskets of millet as gifts, men stopped by to hammer nails or mend fences, eager to be near her new luck. The village chief even nodded when she passed, as if he had always respected her. Through it all Zelma smiled and said little. Praise felt lighter on the shoulders than scorn, but it was still a weight. Only Tumi's laughter mattered. And laughter returned quickly. One Tumi's second spring. With real meals in her belly, the girl blossomed like a thirsty seed after rain. Her hollow cheeks filled out, her hair curled thick and dark again. She raced barefoot over the courtyard, chasing butterflies and the occasional bewildered chicken. Each evening Zelma spent an hour braiding Tumi's hair, humming the lullaby Karu once sang by the cooking fire. When the final braid slipped into place, Tumi would giggle, "Mama, the world feels bright again." Zelma's eyes always stung at those words, half joy, half fear, because she alone knew how quickly brightness can fade. 2 easy offerings. At first, the vessel asked for little. Zelma set it on a woven mat in a small storage room and closed the door from curious eyes. Every sunset she placed a simple truth inside. The first night, a roasted yam sprinkled with salt. The second, a handful of ground nuts she had planned to save. The third, a wooden spoon cracked at the handle, last 2 Koru ever fixed. Each dawn, the vessel rewarded her with more than she surrendered. 2 yams became 10. A spoon returned as a set of fine clay bowls. Ground nuts came back as smoked fish and honey. The balance felt fair, almost kind. But rivers deepened quietly. 3 The vessel's new appetite. On the 14th night Zelma stood before the ebony bowl with nothing but stale maize flour in her hand. Something inside the vessel paused, slower than a heartbeat yet heavier than thunder. She sensed it would not accept stale flour. She remembered Amafu's words, "The offering must cost you." So Zelma spoke into the bowl, soft, shaking words, "The day my husband proposed, I wore a dress the color of rain clouds because we could not afford anything brighter, yet he called me sunlight." She poured the memory like warm water into the vessel. An icy shiver ran along her spine, as though part of her mind had been plucked out. When she tried to picture the grey dress, the image blurred and faded. She could recall the moment in fact, but all feeling around it was gone, hollow as a dried gourd. Morning came with baskets of sweet potatoes, but Zelma barely tasted them. That was how she learned, the vessel now hungered for emotion. For treasures and shadows. Weeks passed. Ekoni thrived on Zelma's sudden generosity. She repaired the broken village well, she paid school fees for orphans, she hired laborers to rebuild the market roof. Every act of kindness made people cheer, and Zelma let them cheer, because giving away wealth was easier than feeding the bowl. Her nightly truths slid from simple to painful. The cracked clay flute Karu carved their first year together. The tiny laugh she used to share with Tumi whenever rain surprised them mid-song. The warm memory of dancing under full moon drums the night before Karu died. Each gift vanished into the vessel with a satisfied hum, and each morning gold or grain or fabric appeared. Zelma stacked extra coins in gourds, hid silks under floorboards, yet always felt poorer. Inside, empty rooms formed, places where joy once lived, corners where laughter echoed. She still smiled, but it was a shape on her face, detached from feeling. When villagers crowded her doorway with thanks, she nodded politely, as if reading lines in a play. Tumi noticed first. Children see cracks adults paint over. 5 cracks in the mask. Mama, she asked one afternoon while plaiting dolls from sorghum straw, why don't you laugh anymore? Zelma's needle paused mid-stitch. She tried to summon the spark of laughter, like striking flint. But only dust rose in her chest. I am busy keeping us safe, she said. That is enough for now. Tumi stared, eyes dark pools of doubt. Safe feels lonely. Zelma kissed her forehead with lips that remembered tenderness, though the feeling barely reached her heart. Soon the rains will come, and we will dance outside again. You'll see. But she wondered if she would ever dance again. The vessel's hunger felt bottomless. 6 nights of heavy silence. The turning point arrived during Ekoni's yearly harvest festival. Lanterns swung from baobab branches, drums echoed across millet fields. Zelma attended wearing a crimson wrapper the vessel had given, silk so fine it whispered when she walked. Men bowed, women clapped, children whispered, look, the lucky widow. Drummers struck the opening rhythm. Villagers linked arms and swore beneath the moonlight. Zelma stepped forward to join, then froze. Music touched her ears but slipped away, unable to stir her feet. She felt the pattern of beats, she saw bodies spin, but joy, real joy, lay locked behind invisible glass. She backed away, apologizing, heart pounding with emptiness. Later, alone in her room, she understood, the vessel had eaten her ability to dance. She stared at the ebony bowl. It paused, eager, expectant. What more do you want? Zelma whispered. The vessel's rim glowed faintly, symbols rearranging until they formed a single word, one she had inside her bones rather than saw, everything. 7 hidden sorrows. From that night Zelma doubled her secrets. She built a false back wall in the storage room, hiding the vessel behind drawers of spies and folded blankets. Each sunset she crept inside, locking 2 doors behind her. She waited until Tumi slept and the village fires dimmed. Offerings grew darker still. Karu's burial cloth, its scent of frankincense and earth. The pride she felt when the chief thanked her for mending the well. The lingering warmth of Tumi's small hand nestled in hers during story hour. Every sacrifice left Zelma colder, yet the vessel demanded more. She began writing memories on palm leaves, things she could not bear to speak aloud, then burned them to ash and poured the ash inside. The vessel accepted each black flake like precious spice. Morning riches never stopped. Ekoni's storehouses overflowed, farmers dug new granaries. Visitors from other villages arrived to trade. They called Zelma Mother of Plenty. Yet she felt like a hollow drum, beautiful on the outside, echoing only when struck. It Tumi's question. One sparkling dawn, Tumi stood in the doorway holding a carved wooden horse the vessel had provided. Mama, she said softly, are you happy? Zelma reached for an answer but came up with wind. The vessel had begun nibbling at her sense of happiness itself, the word felt foreign. She forced a smile anyway. Of course, little bird. Tumi frowned. Your eyes do not match your mouth. Those words cut deeper than any knife. Guilt flared, an emotion the vessel had not claimed yet, and Zelma hugged her daughter tight. She promised herself she would find a way to satisfy the bowl without bleeding her heart dry. But promises not spoken aloud carry little weight against ancient magic. 9 Amafu's warning. That night Zelma dreamed of Nulu Forest. She stood at the hollow pit, lightning flashing without thunder. Amafu emerged from the crackled light, serpent staff glowing hot. You feed the roots poison, the guardian said. Your daughter drinks that poison in every silence you serve her. I give what the vessel asks, Zelma replied, voice small. Truth can be given, Amafu said, but it must also be healed. You gift wounds and wake expecting flowers. She pointed the staff toward Zelma's chest. The next emotion you surrender will leave more than emptiness, it will leave ash. Zelma woke trembling, sweat cold on her skin. Morning sun painted gold across her walls, but the dream tasted real. 10 ashes at sunset. For 2 days Zelma tried smaller offerings, jars of honey, newly learned proverbs, even her favorite market road, but the vessel rejected them. Its pulsing grew louder, thudding like a drum beneath the floorboards. Tumi covered her ears at night, complaining of stones rolling under the house. Villagers asked if angry spirits had settled nearby. On the third evening, Zelma could delay no longer. She lit a single lamp and knelt before the ebony vessel. Tears blurred her sight. She spoke 3 soft words, "Take my laughter." She felt something tear loose from deep within, like fabric ripped in darkness. A warm gust escaped her lips, soundless, colorless, yet heavy with meaning. It swirled above the bow, then sank inside. The vessel hushed, satisfied. Zelma wiped her cheeks, but no sob came. She realized the vessel had stolen her capacity to laugh and to cry. She had emotions, yes, fear, duty, but the outlets for joy and sorrow were gone. She was a dam with no spillway. When she stood, her body felt lighter, her heart, stone. 11 masks and mirrors. Days blurred. Zelma moved through Ekoni like a beautiful ghost. She organized grain storage, paid carpenters, taught weaving classes. She never laughed, she never cried. Villagers said she radiated calm wisdom. Tumi, however, grew quieter, watching her mother the way a sparrow watches a silent sky, unsure if the hawk hides behind clouds. At night Zelma lay beside her child, eyes open to the dark. Thought after thought marched through her mind. What happens when the vessel asks for love itself? What is a mother with no love? Fear clawed but found no door to escape, for tears could no longer fall. 12 secrets piled too high. One afternoon the chief arrived unannounced, bearing a ceremonial drum carved from lionwood. For the woman who saved our village, he declared. Drummers gathered to play it, expecting Zelma to dance. She stepped forward. But her feet refused music. The crowd clapped anyway, mistaking her stillness for shyness. Inside, Zelma's hollowness rang louder than any drum. That night she opened the double-locked room and stared at the vessel. Its surface no longer smooth, faint cracks spiraled like webbing glass, glowing red from within. She imagined Nalue's coils tightening in the hollow pit, hungry for the next truth. Yet she also thought of Amafu's warning, the next emotion you surrender will leave ash. Zelma pressed both palms against the bow, whispering, "What is left to give?" From deep inside the vessel came a single word, a hiss dragged across hot stones, "Dreams." Zelma recoiled. Dreams were the last place she met Koru, the last garden where laughter still bloomed, even if she could not laugh awake. Without dreams she would drift in endless night. 13 Decision at dusk. Sunset bled across the horizon, smearing crimson on low clouds. Zelma sat in the doorway, watching Tumi chase fireflies. Each tiny light reflected in the child's eyes, pure wonder. Zelma swallowed hard, feeling nothing rise, because wonder, too, had faded. Her mind hollowed by bargains, her heart wrapped in soft ash. She listened to distant drums, smelled stew simmering in neighbor pots, felt the dry wind stroke her cheek. All sensations seemed distant, like memories trapped behind glass. Then she spoke aloud for the first time in weeks, "Enough." The word surprised her, it sounded like iron striking stone. She stood and walked indoors, gathering the vessel. It vibrated angrily, sensing refusal. She tied it in goat leather, slipped it into a reed bag, and slung the bag across her shoulder. Tumi met her at the door, brows knitted. "Where are we going?" Zelma knelt, placing steady hands on her daughter's shoulders. She could not muster a smile, but her voice carried calm. "Into the forest, little bird. We must make things right." Tumi's gaze held fear and love, but she nodded. "I will walk beside you." Moonrise found mother and daughter crossing Ekoni's border, lantern lights flickering behind them like farewell candles. Before them, Nulu Forest opened its black-green mouth, whispering with unseen tongues. Inside the reed bag, the ebony vessel thumped like a second heart, hungry, angry, afraid. But Zelma, empty of laughter, empty of tears, felt one fragile ember still glowing. Resolve. And resolve, once lit, rarely dies without a fight. The honey gold sun had barely kissed the hills when a frantic pounding rattled Zelma's new, painted door. Moa, the clay potter's wife, stood outside with eyes wide and wet. Her youngest boy lay fevered, the healer away, the family goat bled by a leopard. Zelma's heart, though hollowed by weeks of battle, still had the cry of need. She grabbed her herb satchel and followed Moa down the dusty path. Together they boiled neem leaves, bathed the boy's head, whispered prayers louder than the buzzing flies. It was slow walk, night crept in like spilled ink. When the child's fever finally broke, a crescent moon hung high and thin as a sickle. Zelma's limbs ached, her eyelids heavy as millet sacks. She hurried home along the village lane, passing empty cooking fires and shuttered windows. At her gate, crickets sang their midnight hymn, a lone owl hooted in the baobab grove. Inside, Tumi slept wrapped in a woven mat near the hearth, cheeks glowing from the last embers. The house smelled of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of stewed yams. Zelma smiled, small, mechanical, and tucked a stray braid behind her daughter's ear. Tomorrow, she murmured, we walk to the river. The promise floated, half dream, half intention. Then, too tired to light an oil lamp, she stumbled into her own room, collapsed on the mat, and surrendered to sleep before the first deep breath finished. She did not go to the hidden chamber. She did not unlock the double doors. She did not place anything inside the ebony vessel. And the forest listened. One midnight without a gift. In the silent storage room, moonlight lanced through a roof crack, silvering the rough floorboards. Beneath folded blankets, the vessel stirred. Its veins of crimson light brightened, as though tasting the missing offering. A low hum, more felt than heard, rippled across the clay jars. Spices clattered, a spider fled its web. At the exact moment the village drum usually marked midnight, a hairline crack split the bowl's rim, snap, sharp as bone breaking. Black smoke seeped out, thick and oily, curling toward the ceiling like a living thing. It carried the smell of damp ash and forgotten graves. The smoke slithered under doors, across halls, into Zelma's room. It drifted above her sleeping face, testing her breath. But the weary mother did not wake, the vessel had stolen her fear months ago. So the darkness rolled past her and flowed to the heart where Tumi dreamed of laughter Zelma could no longer give. The scarf, a gift from her father long ago, lay beside the girl. The smoke coiled around both child and cloth, whispering in a tongue older than rain. Then, with a hiss like water on hot iron, the darkness swallowed them whole, Tumi, scarf, and all, and slipped out through the cracked window into the night. No scream, no footstep, no trace. To a house of ruin. Dawn arrived dressed in dusty grey. First light hit Zelma's eyelids, and she sat up, mind foggy but alert. Something felt wrong. She padded into the main room and froze. The grand table of polished teak. Split down the middle. Clay pots. Shattered shards. Silk curtains. Reduced to damp cobwebs hanging from charred beams. The very walls, once straight and proud, now leaned inward like mourning elders. She spun toward Tumi's mat empty. Heart hammering, she tore through every room, storeroom, courtyard, goat shed. Nothing. Only a hush so deep it rang in her ears. Where laughter used to echo, silence now throbbed, thick and suffocating. Outside, she found a single trail, tiny bare footprints leading toward Nulu Forest, ending at the place where red earth began. There lay Tumi's scarf, turquoise, embroidered with a sun. The threads were blackened, as though touched by fire that left no other mark. Zelma clutched the cloth to her chest. No tears came, the vessel had eaten them. But grief roared inside her, hollow and hot, a furnace without flame. Her head tipped back, and a sound escaped, neither scream nor cry, but something raw, jagged, the noise of a soul splitting. Villagers rushed, drawn by ruin's magnet. They stared at fallen beams, cracked tiles, the once shining house reduced to ash-rimmed rubble. Whispers, once worship, turned sharp. The curse returns. Her riches were never clean. She must have angered the spirit. The chief's guard muttered, perhaps she brought this on us all. Zelma barely heard. She stood swaying, scarf in fist, eyes on the forest line where shade poured like spilled ink. 3 Judgment of the morning. The village square filled fast. Harvest drums fell silent, market stalls closed early. Zelma, so recently mother of plenty, was pushed into the open circle, rubble dust still on her skin. Old Kofi, the griot, raised his ebony staff. Widow of Ekoni, he intoned, we welcome your aid when food flows, but ruin now darkens our door. Speak, what power have you stirred? Zelma's voice emerged, hoarse. I forgot the bargain. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Fisherman Akong spat into the dirt. She deals with demons. I sought only life for my child, Zelma answered, words cracking. The forest spirit gave a vessel. I paid truth for bread, memory for shelter. Last night I missed the offering. Now to me is taken. Some faces softened, Moa, whose son Zelma saved, the schoolteacher whose roof she rebuilt. Yet fear is a faster carpenter than gratitude. New whispers hammered blame. She fed secrets. Now secrets feed on us. The hollow pit has awoken. The chief stepped forward, robes fluttering like crow wings. You must retrieve the child and close this evil, else be cast from Ekoni. Cast her now, shouted a young mason, voice shaking. Others echoed. Stones rattled in angry palms. Zelma met the chief's gaze. Ban me or bless me, it matters little. My path lies one way, into Nulu. Without waiting for verdict, she turned. The circle parted, uncertain, as if her grief burned hotter than their rage. She marched past ruin, past gossip, past guilt, toward the only doorway still open, the forest that had given and now demanded all. For into Nulu once more. The boundary trees loomed, back whipping amber sap like frozen tears. Zelma paused beneath their shade. Something inside her chest, call it courage, call it desperation, clicked into place. The vessel was gone, cracked beyond repair, but its hunger still echoed. She felt it pulling, guiding. Soft footsteps approached. Amafu emerged, silent as dew. The guardian's silver eyes dimmed, as if empathy weighed them down. Across her shoulders the serpent staff hung heavier, scales dulled. You come burdened with loss, Amafu said. My daughter is gone. Zelma's voice was stern. The vessel broke. I warned you of its test. I remembered every night but one. One grain of sand can clog the river, the guardian replied. But rivers also carve new paths. She extended her hand. Will you brave the hollow pit again? Zelma nodded. I walk till I bleed, or bring my child home. Then no, Ndalu has tasted a bond too sweet to release easily. You must offer the pit a truth deeper than any before, the truth you hide even from yourself. Zelma inhaled. She thought there was nothing left to give. Yet a faint flicker stirred, an ember buried under ash. She did not speak it, she barely dared name it. Amafu motioned forward. The path will test every step of your resolve. Speak no lies, for the forest listens. They entered shade so dense it quelled midday light. 5 Forest of mirrors. Roots rose like ribs of sleeping giants. Branches bent to form archways. Zelma followed Amafu along a carpet of red leaves that glowed faint in twilight. At times the guardian vanished, reappearing round the next bend, as though forest and spirit shared one heartbeat. Shadows flickered, shaping memories, Zelma dancing with Karu under rainfall, Tumi giggling over burnt porridge, villagers calling her a lucky widow. Each vision mocked what was stolen. She marched through them, heart numb. A clearing opened, a pool of water smooth as obsidian. Amafu gestured. "Look." Zelma leaned. The reflection did not show her face, it showed Tumi, standing in a cave of coiling roots, eyes wide, voice silent. Smoke coiled at her feet. "Ndalo keeps her where truth cannot breathe," Amafu said. "To reach her, you must let truth breathe through you." "How?" "Name what you deny." Zelma's pulse throbbed. She thought of missed laughter, stolen tears, the warmth of motherhood scraped in by bargains. Yet one thing lay deeper, sharp as buried bone, she had feared losing Tumi more than honoring Karu's memory. In the vessel's early days, she had traded Karu's last love letter, promised to keep forever, for a sack of rice. She had never forgiven herself, but never spoken it aloud. Her whisper trembled, "I sold my husband's last words." The pool rippled. Smoke broke like shattered glass. In the mirrored cave, Tumi lifted her head, lips moving though no sound came. Amafu nodded. "Again, speak it to the ground." Zelma knelt, pressed both palms to soil. "Karu, I failed you. I chose bread over your voice. I thought survival was the only honor left. Forgive me." A wind spiraled upward, whistling through leaves like flutes. The pool shattered into mist, revealing a pathway of red earth leading deeper. Six the cracked mouth of the pit. They reached the hollow pit near dusk. It looked angrier than ever, edges jagged, smoke rising like black tongues. Deep below, something shifted, the heavy slide of monstrous scales. The air smelled of iron storms. Zelma stepped to the rim. "Ndalo," she cried, voice echoing. "You have my daughter. Take me instead." The pit answered with a hiss, then silence. Amafu rested a hand on Zelma's shoulder. "Words alone will not satisfy. Truth must weigh enough to tip the scale. What do I have left?" Zelma's tone cracked. The guardian's silver eyes reflected dying light. "There is one treasure you have not dared surrender, hope itself. Give hope, and the pit may return what hope once shielded." Zelma shuddered. Hope was the last ember, without it she feared becoming nothing more than walking ashes. Yet, across the gulf of smoke, she pictured Tumi's small hand reaching. She inhaled, slow and deep. Then she spoke, voice even, "I release hope. I accept whatever end awaits, if only my child walks free." She felt it, a physical wrench, like thread yanked from heart muscle. Breath staggered, the world dimmed. Color drained from her sight. Hope fled, leaving calm, colorless void. Yet she stood steady. The pit roared, no longer his but primal thunder. Smoke spiraled, then reversed, sucked inward as if the earth inhaled. Cracked walls glowed gold, fissures sealed. In a burst of red light, something rose, Tumi, limp but unharmed, settled gently upon the rim. Zelma rushed, caught her child. Tumi's eyes fluttered, a weak whisper slid out, "Mama." Zelma held her, numb yet alive. The void inside echoed, but her arms remembered love's strength, they did not loosen. From the pit, a final plume of smoke drifted skyward, shaping words only hearts could hear, one life returned, one death forgiven. Do not knock again. 7 returned to a broken village. Amafu guided mother and daughter through the forest as stars winked awake. At the boundary, the guardian spoke, hope will regrow, but watered by honesty, not bargains. Zelma nodded, no tears, no smile, but something new, a quiet readiness to build without shortcuts. She thanked Amafu, who shimmered into starlight. The village fires glowed ahead. People gasped at the sight of Tumi alive. Some backed away in fear, others dropped to knees in thanks. The chief stepped forward, humbled. "What price did you pay?" Zelma met his gaze, voice steady. "Everything that was not real." She faced the crowd. "Riches earned by feeding darkness turned to dust. I return with nothing but truth, and my daughter. That is enough." Slowly, villagers set aside stones. Mowa's children brought water. Old Kofi raised his staff in salute. One by one, neighbors began picking broken bricks from Zelma's courtyard, pledging to rebuild not a palace, but a home. That night, moonlight found Zelma sitting on the dusty ground beside Tumi, watching sparks rise from a small cooking fire. The scarf lay across the girl's shoulders, threadbare yet bright. Zelma felt the void where hope once burned, still empty, but calling. Tumi leaned against her. Warmth spread, faint as dawn's first color. And in that fragile warmth, a seed stirred, too small to name, but real. It would not bloom tomorrow, nor maybe next season, yet it paused with the promise of green. Zelma closed her eyes. No laughter, no tears, only breathing. For now, breathing was enough. When the wind spoke her name. Ekoni lay silent under a sky of bruised purple. Weeks had passed since Tumi's return, yet Joy still walked on tiptoes through the village, unsure if it was welcome. Zelma and her daughter lived in a borrowed grain hut while neighbors rebuilt the ruins stone by stone. Each dawn, Tumi woke stronger. Each dusk, Zelma sat at the doorway, gaze fixed on Nulu forest as if listening for a drum no one else could hear. One evening the wind finally spoke, soft, rasping, full of dust. "Zelma," it hissed through withered millet stalks, "one step more." She knew the voice. It was the same Mema that had guided her to the ebony vessel the first time, the same bread that had stolen Tumi away when she forgot her debt. Ndalu was calling. Zelma kissed her sleeping child, wrapped a plain cloth around her shoulders, and set out beneath a rising half-moon. She carried no food, no water, no charms, only the weight of unfinished truth. To Nulu in mourning. The forest felt older, wounded. Leaves curled brown at the edges, vines sagged like tired arms. Where birds once hid, empty nests rocked in the breeze. Zelma's bare feet brushed ash where moss used to glow. Every tree she passed whispered the same word, balance. Yet deep beneath the hush she sensed another rhythm, slow, heavy, coiling, the heartbeat made of stone and scale. It drew her forward until she reached the red-soiled clearing of the hollow pit. There she halted, for someone else waited at the rim. 3 Amafu transformed. Amafu, the forest guardian, still carried the serpent staff, but its wood was cracked, leaking pale sap. Her silver eyes were clouded like river water after flood. Dark streaks marked her cheeks, her robe hung in tatters. Even so, a faint glow clung to her, the last ember of long-lived dawn. "Child of Ekoni," she greeted, voice roughened by sorrow, "why return after the pit spit back flame?" Zelma bowed her head. "Because the story is unfinished. Ndalu still whispers my name." Amafu's shoulders sagged. "The hollow has grown sick from every bargain it swallowed. I am its guardian no longer, merely its witness. But perhaps endings listen better than beginnings." She lifted the cracked staff. "The vessel you broke can be unmade, yet only by a sacrifice as weighty as the chain of lies that forged it." "A life," Zelma whispered. "Or a truth," Amafu replied, "so pure it tears the earth and sets the river of stories straight." She stepped aside, revealing the ebony vessel lying at the pit's mouth, split in two but not dead. Veins of dull red steel pulsed along its broken halves like embers under ash. "Ndalu waits," the guardian added. "Choose breath or truth." For the coiled judge. Zelma approached the chasm. From shadow rose the serpent spirit, scales black as moonless water, bands of tarnished gold circling its neck. Eyes like twin lamps gazed through memory and marrow. The air shivered with its hiss. Keeper of empty promises, Nalu intoned, the words entering Zelma's skull without passing through ears. What do you bring to weigh against your crimes? Zelma knelt, palms on red dust. I bring confession. All of it. The serpent's head dipped, intrigued. Smoke seeped from its nostrils, curling into shapes, coins, food, silk, shattered laughter. Each faded like chalk in rain. 5. A story laid bare. Zelma spoke until her throat burned. She told how greed first whispered when Tumi's ribs showed like cage bars. How the first coin in the bowl felt harmless, like lifting water for a thirsty bird. How hunger for safety turned to hunger for praise, and praise to pride. How she traded Karu's final love letter for rice, then buried the shame beneath endless giving. How each night she fed the vessel scraps of her heart until no laughter, no tears remained. How she forgot one sunset and paid with daylight itself. Words became confession, confession became offering. Each syllable left her lighter, hollower, yet strangely clearer, as if flesh were turning to clean glass through which starlight could pass. When silence fell, Zelma lifted her chin. These are my faults. My life is yours if that is what balance demands. But spare my daughter, and heal this forest that has suffered from my bargains. 6. Breath on the scales. Amafu raised the cracked staff. Roots erupted from the ground, weaving a living circle around Zelma and Nalu. The air thickened, even the moon seemed to hold its breath. The serpent lowered its massive head until one golden eye filled Zelma's sky. A tongue of smoke brushed her cheek, tasting truth. Your final breath, Nalu judged, for her bound breath. Gift accepted. A soft glow stirred inside Zelma's chest, her last ember of living spirit. She exhaled, slow and steady, letting that ember ride the air. It drifted toward the serpent like a single firefly. As her chest emptied, color drained from the world. Sound muffled, limbs cooled. She felt herself becoming the pause between heartbeats. 7. Release. The ember touched Nalu's scales. Light raced along the serpent's body, turning black to emerald, tarnished to living gold. With a roar half thunder, half river, the spirit uncoiled. Smoke burst skyward then reversed, sucking into the cracked vessel pieces. The bow shuddered, then shattered into grey dust that sank into the crimson soil. From the dust sprouted a young sapling, bright-leafed, dew-fresh, growing tall in an instant. Flowers followed, crimson, indigo, sun yellow, racing outward in ripples to every corner of Nulu. Dying vines lifted, birdsong returned in 1,000 notes. Zelma felt none of it. Her body lay still, eyes closed, a faint smile resting where sorrow once camped. Though breath was gone, peace unfurled like dawn. 8. A daughter's awakening. Far away in Ekoni, Tumi awoke beneath a starry roof of reeds, gasping as if surfacing from deep water. For one heartbeat she trembled, then sensed a warm breeze scented with rain-washed flowers blow through the hot door. Mama, she whispered. The breeze curled around her, gentle, familiar. Somewhere inside it, a voice like dusk-time humming said, "Live with truth, little bird." And she knew. 9. Guardian of balance. At the pit, Amafu watched the serpent spirit, now bright as sunrise, dive into the earth. The ground sealed behind it with no scar. Then the guardian knelt beside Zelma's body. Where flesh met soil, green vines intertwined, lifting her gently until she stood, yet not as before. Zelma's form glowed soft jade, hair flowing like river grass, eyes clear as morning rain. She felt no hunger, no fear, only a steady pulse that matched the forest heartbeat. Amafu smiled, eyes bright again. Welcome, sister of roots. Zelma's spirit breathed, not air, but wind, water, sap. I will watch, she promised, voice rustling leaves. I will warn. The two guardians stood beneath blooming branches while dawn painted the sky. 10. Lesson in stone. Where the ebony vessel had cracked lay a slab of red rock, smoothed by unseen hands. Upon it glimmered fresh carved words. To take without balance is to lose what you hold most dear. Travelers who found the stone in later years would stop, read, and feel the forest listening. Some hurried away, others left small offerings of nuts or songs, a thank you to spirits unseen. 11. A village reborn. Rains returned to Ekoni that season, gentle, generous. Fields greened. Wells filled. No one called Zelma cursed again, instead they spoke of the mother of balance who walked beyond the veil to keep watch. Tumi grew. She attended the schoolhouse her mother rebuilt, told stories of a guardian who whispered in wind gusts and bird calls. When drought threatened, she led children to the forest edge to plant seeds and speak honest hopes into the soil. Sometimes, on still afternoons, villagers swore they saw two figures among distant trunks, one carrying a serpent staff, the other with eyes like dawn, guiding lost travelers back to safe paths. 12. Circles close, rivers flow. Seasons turned, children grew, memory softened. Yet the lesson on the stone outlived every harvest. Traders copied it onto palm leaves, bards wove it into songs, elders recited it during market quarrels. Take without balance, lose what you hold most dear. Simple words, heavy as mountains, light as feathers, carried on from mouth to ear like seeds on wind. And in Nulu forest, flowers forever bloomed around a hidden hollow, guarded by two spirits born of sacrifice and truth. Whenever the moon waxed silver, their mingled voices rose above cricket choirs, reminding the world. Greed is a candle that burns the hand holding it. Truth is water that finds, at last, its own level.